A year since draft terms of reference for the Government of National Unity's dispute resolution mechanism were first tabled, it has finally adopted its guiding principles. President Cyril Ramaphosa set up the clearinghouse last year to resolve policy disagreements among the 10 parties, with the stalemate over the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, the Bella Bill, having been one of its first orders of business. For more on this development, we're joined by Jaap, the Visser, National Research Chair in Multi-Level Government at the Dullah Omar Institute at the University of the Western Cape. A very good evening to you, Prof. Thanks very much for your time. I'm just keen to know just how much of a problem these GNU partners thought they had when they roped you in to help figure out a deadlock breaking mechanism.
Good evening, Vuyo, and it's very good to be with you. Yes, I played a role in the drafting of these terms of reference because I think the Office of the Deputy President could use some additional minds and drafting just to think this thing through. And the first point I want to make is that I think it's a positive development in general that we now have in terms of reference, because what it means is that we are getting used to how to manage coalitions. We can talk about the pros and cons of this document and whether it's going to really make a big difference. Obviously, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, but I think it's positive that we are now looking for ways to regularize coalition management, and we're no longer fiddling in the dark and making up rules and ideas every day, but that we actually have some sort of protocol in place, and we can refine this as we go along. My own personal role in it was very minor. I was asked to help with some drafting and contribute some ideas. After that, it was still quite a long time of processing within the GNU before it was adopted. But I think it's a good sign that we have something in place that also can be continuously improved and can sort of function as a bit of it's not a law. I remember the term of reference is not a law. This is not something that is legally binding. It is basically a protocol. It's a process that the GNU partners commit to following when they don't have when they have a dispute that they cannot resolve. So this is not a decision-making structure. It's not a body of government. It's not an organ of state. It's not an alternative to parliament or cabinet. It's basically the GNU partners saying to each other, well, if we can't see eye to eye on a particular issue, let's follow this process, and hopefully this process will then lead to a resolution of those conflicts.
Before we speak to some of the key features of this protocol and what it hopes or the parties hope it'll do, one would have thought, as you said, that with so many years of experience in dealing with coalitions, by the time we got to this stage, which was brought about by last year's elections, most of these parties would have really an intense knowledge of where the issues are and how to resolve them, which would perhaps have negated the need for this protocol to begin with.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, we certainly have had coalitions in local government ever since the year 2000, actually. So coalitions are not new, but remember, they were only prevalent in local government. And for one or other reason, the experience that was gained at local government level did not materialize or did not result in national parties or at national government level parties really being prepared for how to build coalitions. And it was an issue that I raised with many people in the years leading up to the 2021 elections. And every time when I said, well, maybe we should be prepared for such a thing called coalitions, but there wasn't a great appetite for it, because of course every political party that participates in the elections obviously says it's going to win, and certainly the ruling party always maintained, we are going to win these elections, and that's fine. I mean, that's of course why you enter elections in the first place. But at some point it becomes a little bit, ignoring the trend and not being prepared when in fact there is no outright majority. But okay, that is what it is. I think we can also say that the GNU has, given all the turbulence and all the difficulties and all the stalemates, it has held up, and it was put together in record time. It has held up. It's still functioning. Look, there are lots of difficulties and unresolved issues and delays and paralysis. But certainly, it is a whole lot better than a government that would collapse. So it's a case of glass half full, glass half empty, and I'm an optimist, so I'm still looking at it as the glass half full.
I know that, it still has to go to the political leaders, forum for ratification. But what in very real, practical and simple terms does it actually provide for?
Yeah, so basically what it does is it sets out a set of rules that the parties in the GNU commit to following when there is a dispute. Now, a very important starting point is that those rules are followed when there is no sufficient consensus. Sufficient consensus is when 60% or more of the GNU, or in other words, the parties representing 60% or more of the seats in National Assembly, if they find agreement, then that's it. There's no dispute resolution necessary. In other words, if the ANC and the DA agree, then the issue is decided. So that's a very important starting principle, because as you know, the other parties that are part of the GNU, they are obviously not essential to maintaining a majority. If they fall by the wayside or if they withdraw from the GNU, it will not result in the GNU collapsing. So I think that is the basis for the principle that if there's sufficient consensus, no dispute resolution is necessary. However, if there is no sufficient consensus, in other words, the DA and the ANC do not agree on the issue, then it goes into this clearinghouse system, which essentially is the clearinghouse is a subcommittee of the Political Leaders Forum, which essentially is all the political leaders of the GNU. It is chaired by the Deputy President. And when a dispute is referred to it, either by the parties or by the chief whips in the GNU chief whips in Parliament, or by the Political Leaders Forum, if a dispute is referred to it, it essentially starts dialoguing about that dispute, having meetings, further set of meetings, perhaps appoint an ad hoc committee, bring in experts to advise, and ultimately it will just have a series of conversations, dialogues, to seek to resolve that issue. And that may sound very wishy-washy, but that is the essence of coalition management, is to talk, and to talk, and to talk, and to talk until you resolve the issue. Because there is not really a mechanism for a hard and binding decision, that one person or one party can then take a hard binding decision, because that's not what coalition building is about. So it is a dispute resolution mechanism that is needed only if there's no sufficient consensus, when the DA and the ANC can't see eye to eye. And then it goes into this clearinghouse subcommittee chaired by the Deputy President, and then they have various options to essentially keep the conversation going until the dispute is resolved. Or, and this is for me a very interesting mechanism in the terms of reference, which I wrote into it, and I'm chuffed to see that it's still there, is that they can also agree to disagree. To actually take a decision in that clearinghouse to say, listen, we have an issue here, we have a dispute, we don't see eye to eye on it, we can't really come to an agreement within the GNU, but guess what? It doesn't have to collapse the GNU. We're not going to withdraw from the GNU. It's not such a fundamental issue that we have to collapse the GNU or withdraw from it, but we agree to disagree, and then it's simply up to the numbers in Parliament or in Cabinet how the issue will be decided, but it will then not be decided by the coalition. And that is actually quite a pragmatic way of having a mechanism whereby a political party that says, I don't agree with this, can record that, can keep its face up towards its constituency and say, we are still the party that we will always were. We haven't sold our principles. We still have certain things that we don't agree with. But we still keep our responsibility and we keep governing in the GNU. So those are some of the mechanisms that you'll find in that terms of reference wheel.
So hell doesn't have to break loose, so to speak. Professor Visser, let me thank you very much for your time. National Research Chair in Multi-Level Government at the Dullah Omar Institute at the University of the Western Cape.